Welcome to 2020 everybody, Happy New Year. Now first off, I've got something to tell you all.
It's a very exciting time.
From here on out this year, I'm really going to start shifting my focus to this channel and hopefully grow it a lot. So the current plan is to release one video a week, and if you want to follow me more, I've linked my Instagram and Twitter accounts below. But anyway, given that it's a new year, a new decade, I thought it'd be cool to go through my top 10 favorite The Walking Dead episodes of the 2010s. Now this is going to be really hard and it's sort of all in flux because, well, I love so many episodes that it's basically impossible for me to have a definitive list. And I'm pretty certain the back half of season 10 is going to be filled with some greatly insane episodes. But hey, let's give it a shot. Now first, I'll kick off with some dishonorable mentions. I considered doing a whole top 10 worst episodes video, but honestly there's not an episode of the show that I hate or think is flat out bad at all. I mean, if we were talking about Fear, that'd be a whole different story. Basically the entirety of season 4 and 5 are just one big dishonorable mention. But for The Walking Dead, the lowest I've ever rated an episode so far is a 6 out of 10. And that's only for 2 episodes. One being season 7's episode 16 finale, The First Day of the Rest of Your Life, which I've already touched on in my finales video, but basically it's just a mess of direction, tone, and execution of a story that should be amazing. But it's just underwhelming and, well, kinda awkward. And the next dishonorable mention is season 8's episode 6, The King, the Widow, and Rick, which is just ultimately a very uneventful, forced, and forgettable episode. A lot of season 8's first half is pretty average, but this one sticks out as the weakest to me, with Jesus' preachy stance of the saviors, Rick's stupid plan with Jadis, a really weak subplot with Michonne and Rosita investigating this warehouse which is only solved by sheer luck, and also Carl gets bitten, just to add extra salt to the wound. But anyway, let's not be too negative at the start of this year, let's go to some honorable mentions. Which honestly, there could be a lot more of these, but this video would go on forever, so I just had to choose whatever I was feeling at this moment. First up, we got season 3's episode 12, Clear, which I think is honestly the best way Morgan could have ever first returned after days gone by. It's filled with some really emotional performances, and not only do we get this really heartbreaking development for Morgan, but it's also the first time we really get some heartfelt bonding between Michonne and Rick and Carl. Easily a 10 out of 10 episode.
I was gonna go back in anyway. I just couldn't leave this behind. It's too damn gorgeous.
Next we have This Sorrowful Life, season 3's episode 15, which is Merle's last episode. And we get some of the most memorable Merle stuff here, he's just so enjoyable. And his redemption arc is great and seriously satisfying, which makes it all the more heartbreaking and painful when he's killed and Daryl finds him. Also, I really love Rick's own inner conflict about whether to turn Michonne in or not. It's just a strong episode on all fronts and one of the best of season 3. A 10 out of 10 episode.
This is life and death. How you live, how you die. It isn't up to me. I'm not your governor.
Now, this one might surprise some people, but I wanted to mention season 4's episode 12, Still. I think this episode is really heartfelt and a great character study of how Daryl and Beth deal with the events of the fall of the prison. And its ending honestly tears me up with how the two end up bonding and the final smile Daryl has. Beautiful stuff. I give Still a 9 out of 10. Next we got season 4's finale, A, which I've talked about before, but it's a super tense, brutal, and excellent finale on all fronts. And it's still part of one of the best story arcs the show has ever had. Easily a 10 out of 10 episode. Following on from this arc is season 5's episode 3, 4 Walls and a Roof, which is just such a darkly thrilling and entertaining episode, and seeing Rick flip the table on Gareth and his cannibals is just stellar TV. Even the way Rick steps out of the darkness mirroring Gareth is just great stuff. Not to mention Bob's emotional goodbye and Maggie's line to Gabriel is just the cherry on top. 10 out of 10.
This is the Lord's house. No. It's just 4 walls and a roof.
Now this episode is actually my second favorite episode of season 7, which is episode 13, Bury Me Here, which is fueled by a really emotionally resonant performance by Lenny James. It's episodes like this that make me really love Morgan's character, and his descent into madness here is so tragic, but at the same time there's such an uplifting tone at the end of the episode with Carol and Ezekiel finally deciding to join the fight. An overlooked episode in my opinion, which certainly gets a 10 out of 10 from me. Next up, a more recent episode is Season 9's mid-season finale, Evolution, which I'll touch on in my next video, which will focus on the mid-season finales of the show, but basically this episode has such an enjoyably spooky atmosphere that I can't not love it. The way the mystery of the Whisperers unfolds and then explodes in the final moments is just so exciting that I get goosebumps every time I see it. 10 out of 10. And a final honorable mention is Season 9's episode 13, Choke Point. And let's not beat around the bush here, it's just a badass episode. Seeing Daryl face down against the Whisperers is just cool, and one of the most exciting episodes in an already fast-paced and gripping season. Especially after the disappointing fights between Rick and Negan in our last season, this one is just, it floored me. 10 out of 10. And now we've finally made it to the top 10 episodes. I know it took a little while, but you know, it's a show with 10 seasons and over 100 episodes. I think it does deserve the time. So, without further ado... Okay, wait, hold the phone just for a moment longer. I just want to say that because I'm so indecisive about choosing a proper order for these episodes, but basically, besides choices number 1 and 2, all these top 10 episodes of mine are basically interchangeable. Just because one's in front of the other doesn't mean I like that one more specifically, or vice versa. Okay, now the real without further ado. Number 10. Season 7's episode 1, The Day Will Come When You Won't Be. I've touched on this episode before, but it's a truly gut-wrenching piece of television which has no reservations in breaking its characters and its audience. It doesn't hold back, and is filled with hauntingly memorable imagery and painfully real performances. It's a daring and brutal beginning to the season which was so shocking people even stopped watching. There's no doubt of the impact this episode had on the show, its story and characters. Number 9. Season 6's episode 9, No Way Out, which is simply an explosive episode. The shit that hits the fan here is tragic, exciting, thrilling, and joyful all at the same time. It's such a relentless episode, but it's also filled with a lot of hope. Gabriel really coming into his own is a great scene. And then all the Alexandrians fighting together, Abraham, Sasha, and Daryl arriving, and the ending could honestly be the ending of the entire series if they wanted it to. It's so powerful of a moment and excellently builds upon the themes that alone makes the episode. Number 8, Season 5's Episode 1, No Sanctuary. And yep, I still remember the hype for this episode and just how fucking badass it is. It's a killer premiere and is certainly how you open a season. Rick is at his most savage here and it's wonderful. But again, that balance of lightness and darkness works beautifully with them reuniting with Judith and Carol at the end. It's got all the excitement, emotion, and thrills you could possibly want from an episode of The Walking Dead. Number 7. Season 9's episode 15, The Calm Before. This is an outstanding episode. In the episodes I've talked about before, they're filled with darkness and horror at first, but then there's moments of hope and goodness at the end. But here, it's reversed. The episode spends a lot of time just having a good old day with all the characters. It's wonderful, and it makes it even more heart-wrenching and shocking when the episode takes such a dark turn. The execution of the Pike scene and the reveals of who's on each one is such killer editing and music that alone deserves an award of some kind. It's fantastic storytelling, let alone the moment mirroring Daryl trying to stop Carol from seeing Henry just like he did back in Pretty Much Dead Already with Sophia. This is a truly unforgettable episode, and I think it proved to a lot of fans that this show still has what it takes to shock, surprise, and raise its ever-growing stakes. It was no doubt a sign of a new, exciting era of the show. Number 6, Season 9's Episode 5, What Comes After. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I can't watch this episode without crying the entire time, and I think that says more than anything else could. I've never felt so emotionally affected by an episode before. From beginning to end, this episode broke me. Rick Grimes is like a second father to me. I've grown up with him for almost a decade in my most formative years, and to see him struggle in such pain and remember such beautiful moments of the past, it's just the perfect send-off for him, and my god was I relieved when he survived. I mean, it still didn't stop me from crying, but it was such a grateful feeling that he flew away, and I can't wait for the movies. But anyway, I've got nothing more to say about this episode, it's just magnificent.
You're my family. I found you.
Number 5, Season 3's Episode 4, Killer Within. Now, a lot of people still hate Laurie, even after all these years, but considering a whole part of her arc is just trying to mend her relationship with Rick, I actually ended up really liking her character upon rewatches. She regrets what she did, and it's sad seeing her relationship with Rick so broken. But when they finally have this quiet moment smiling at each other through the fences, and their relationship begins to finally find some happiness, it's really sweet, and yet another heartfelt moment interrupted by the brutality of the world, which makes this episode such a strong one emotionally. This is a horrifyingly beautiful episode. The performances excellently portray the panic the group has when the walkers are loose in the prison. The mini redemption Oscar has is satisfying as hell. T-Dog goes out like a hero in a painfully gory manner, and even the sound of the prison sirens are just eerie.
Can you keep up? Something's not right. Are you bit? No. I think the baby's coming.
And finally, Laurie's death and Rick's reaction to finding out are not only huge stepping stones for Rick and Carl as characters, but are simply iconic moments which bring tears to my eyes every time. Her final words to Carl solidify her as a strong character for me. For all her faults, she still loves her son and believes in him, and it's tragic to see her go out the way she does. Not to mention the nice touch that the music being used is the same score used in Better Angels, in that iconic scene where Rick talks to Carl about how they'll all die at some point. And speaking of which, number 4, Season 2's Episode 12, Better Angels. That heart-to-heart scene between Rick and Carl is just one of many special moments in this episode. The benefit of having a smaller group, which is certainly an aspect of the show I miss and feel nostalgic for, is that we really get to know each of these characters and their specific relationships with one another, and they're often dealing with one problem altogether rather than a whole heap of different ones. This moment of grieving between Andrea and Glenn over Dale is one of my favourite moments in the series, and really just because of its simple, heartfelt nature.
I bet it'll work.
And of course, the final confrontation between Rick and Shane is an unforgettable moment in the show's history, right down to the visual of the moon shining behind them and the quiet wind blowing across the field. Rick makes a huge, tragic, and painful step here, and for as terrible as Shane was, I can't forget how close they were, and knowing his presence would forever be gone is a truly sorrowful feeling. Also, the cliffhanger of the walkers heading towards the farm is just perfect. Number 3, Season 2's episode 11, Judge, Jury, Executioner. Some people might be surprised by this choice, but to me this episode has always, in a very emotionally driven manner, encapsulated the moral conflicts and themes at the heart of this show. And Jeffrey DeMunn gives a really emotionally powerful performance. His desperation when speaking to the whole group is heartbreaking, and the episode really sells how important of a moment it is for Rick when deciding whether to execute Randall or not. And again, because this group is so much smaller, the way these decisions affect the other characters is done with tenfold more consequences. And Dale's death is equally as powerful, yet for as gruesome and sad as it is, his final story is perfectly suiting for him, and his own arguments are still felt today in the show with Negan and such. Rest in peace, Dale.
You once said that we don't kill the living.
Well, that was before the living tried to kill us.
But don't you see, if we do this, the people that we were, the world that we knew is dead. And this new world is ugly. It's harsh. It's a survival of the fittest. And that's a world I don't want to live in. And I don't believe that any of you do. I can't. Please. Let's just do what's right.
Number 2. Season 1's Episode 1, Days Gone By. It had to be here somewhere. I've spoken about it at length before, and it's still undeniable that, after all, I don't think we'd be where we are at without Frank Darabont's masterpiece of a premiere. The tone, the vibe, the characters, the emotion, the themes, the horror, the action, the spectacle, the visuals, the heart, all of it introduced with such a skillful hand. And all I have to say is that I'll be forever thankful to Frank Darabont and everyone else that worked on creating such a perfect beginning to the Walking Dead story. Number 1. Season 4's Episode 8, Too Far Gone. Now, as I said earlier, I'm working on a mid-season finale video for next week, so I will be talking quite a bit about this episode then, but to put it simply, Too Far Gone has everything a Walking Dead episode should, let alone the fact that it's right in the middle of one of the best seasons of the show. The development, the themes, the action, the music, the direction, it's all perfectly done to create this truly memorable experience of clashing emotions on all fronts. And I watched this episode live, which makes its connection with me all the deeper. I can still remember the shock and excitement I had when first seeing this episode. And if I had to pick a favorite moment, it would certainly be when Rick finally accepts that they can move on and change from the things they've done. It's such a wonderfully powerful moment and encapsulates Rick and the show's ultimate constant struggle, and Andrew Lincoln truly sells how important of a moment it is. And Herschel's smile, it's just too beautiful. And again, The Walking Dead does what The Walking Dead does, and rips away these moments, and the outside world of violence comes pouring in, and it's truly tragic, yet at the same time, goddamn exciting. It's an episode that balances everything The Walking Dead is always doing and makes for an unforgettable episode.
But we can still come back. We're not too far gone. We get to come back. I know. We all can change.
Well, that's it everybody, my top 10 episodes of the decade. Let me know your top 10 in the comments below, and I look forward to bringing you guys countless more videos this year. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.